reopen the regular board meeting. We're on number 4, the consent agenda. Would anybody like to pull anything out or move seats? Good, Penfield.
I'd like to pull 4.2.2, the CER discharge permit.
Okay,
And that will become 10.5.
anybody else? Seeing none, would someone like to move the rest of the consent agenda? Compton, seconded by Penfield. Any opposed? Motion carries. Any business arising from the minutes? None. We're on 6. Committee reports and recommendations. 6.1 EAD committee recommendations from April 8th. We're going to 2 times. So you'd like to make that motion? Dr. Rainbow, seconded by Director Herford. Would you like to speak to it? Have a question? Any opposed? Motion carries. 7.1, test for decision, electoral C zoning bylaw amendment 1879/2025, regards to duplexes comprehensive development. Now, do we have a? Let's do it, sir. Yeah.
I think it's sort of back in the trees. So
Priscilla.
so good one is here.
Go ahead. You still. Good morning, everybody. They will do it when you're ready.
We need business. Okay, what are we doing?
Everyone, Christina Bell, planner with the SLRD. The primary purpose of this report is to bring the proposed bylaw amendment before the SLRD board for consideration of 3rd reading. To summarize, the draft section 219 covenant development agreement, which includes the pre-adoption conditions and phasing conditions, and to introduce to the board an alternative strategy incorporated into this development agreement for addressing the maintenance of the proposed pedestrian underpass associated with the development. So this amendment bylaw was presented to the board for 3rd reading in January, and changes have been made to the development agreement. No changes were made to the amending bylaw, so I will focus on the development agreement today. I'll first just speak to the summary of the report and provide some background, and then I'll get into the details of the changes that were made. So just as a brief summary, this proposal is for a market housing development consisting of 12 units and 6 duplexes across the highway from the existing Wedgwoods estates. The proposal includes essential infrastructure improvements that are key to the project's advancement, as we've discussed here, including bus shelter and the pedestrian underpass to facilitate that safe connection. So at the January 2026 board meeting, the development agreement and the zoning amendment bylaw were presented. And at the time, staff were recommending that a service establishment bylaw be explored to initiate a service for maintenance and operations of the proposed underpass. However, the SLRD board expressed concern with this approach and noting that there was a limited interest in taking on such a rigorous task or responsibility when the SLRD may not have the appropriate resources and capacity. So additionally, there was discussion around the Ministry of Transportation's role here and their involvement. And so the amending bylaw was referred back to staff. So since January, staff have developed an alternative strategy, which I'll get into with the applicant, that avoids putting the responsibility of maintenance on the SLRD, which is presented in this report. So yeah, I'll focus on those changes, which I believe is in pages 124 and 125 of your package. For ownership, so staff did meet with Mott, who reconfirmed that they will retain ownership of the pedestrian underpass, so that does include capital replacements, but would not be responsible for that ongoing maintenance. And so that was something we discussed last time, but staff actually met directly with Mott to understand that relationship. So for the maintenance approach, if this alternative approach is approved by the board, the maintenance obligations, including the related costs, would be assigned to the landowner and the following strata corporation rather than the SLRD. So the strata corporation would be required to retain an insured contractor to conduct this ongoing maintenance of the pedestrian underpass and the connecting trails. And that's been written in a way in the agreement that pertains to snow clearing and power washing and those day-to-day tasks that might be involved. There's an enforcement mechanism that's been incorporated here, which would be a rental charge. So that charge isn't a fee that's paid on an ongoing basis, but rather it's a financial enforcement tool available to the SLRD in the case that that agreement isn't being met for the maintenance requirements. Yeah, there's a bullet point list on page 125 there of the package that lists those associated changes of the agreement. And I just wanted to note that includes the changes to add the fossil-free community language that was noted last time. So that's language prohibiting the piped natural gas at the site for the development. I just wanted to touch on, with writing for legal implications and financial implications that's touched on in the report. We did discuss this with our legal counsel and the applicant's legal counsel. The draft agreement establishes a clear legal framework for how this maintenance responsibility is passed on. If there's more questions about that, I can definitely answer them. But I think I'll leave those details there. To close, I just wanted to note also the procedural significance, as I'm sure we all know, of the third reading. So until third reading is voted on, the bylaw, like in January, was referred back to staff, which happened in January. However, if the resolution for third reading is defeated today, the bylaw can't come back to the board in its current state. So I'll close with that, but if there's questions around that, I can definitely answer them.
Thank you so much. Questions?
Thank you for the presentation and all the work on this. I feel like we're in the right direction for the underpass issue. That mechanism to secure that the work gets done, it's laid out. I'm sure it makes sense to lawyers that wrote it, but it's very chunky to read. Could you run us through that piece and how my concern is that we have a mechanism to secure an appropriate amount of funds to do whatever it needs over time. And I kind of feel like the small pieces, like this dollar amount, seems to get spent mobilizing to a site, never mind to actually doing something. So, but also tunnels are relatively low maintenance. So I'm just trying to understand how we've arrived at these numbers in this mechanism and to give us some assurance going forward that we're in a reasonable place.
Yeah, thank you for the question through the chair. The proposal for this rent charge was something that was suggested and written by our lawyers. And to clarify, the charge is more of that penalty rather than us collecting the fee to conduct the maintenance on our own. And just like with other bylaw enforcement within the SLRD, that would come from kind of a complaint scenario where if the trails connecting to the pedestrian underpass weren't being cleared and weren't walkable, that then the responsibility to do that maintenance was not being met, and that's where the charge would come in as a penalty. The amount was determined by a rough estimate of what those extra costs might be to conduct the maintenance, and then exceeding that number in a way that it would still be a penalty to that you would want to avoid and still conduct the maintenance. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you, that's really helpful.
Yeah, and maybe I misunderstood it, it's in there, but we've sort of, in my mind, become focused on sort of snow clearing and that sort of thing. But this infrastructure has a lifespan. I don't know if it's 15 years or 35 years, so as the cement needs to be redone or the paving or whatever. Has MOTT confirmed they will own that piece and invest properly, or how does that sort of get managed?
Yeah, through the chair, MOTT has confirmed that. Yeah, they own the infrastructure and would be responsible for capital replacements. As far as that ongoing maintenance and operations. There would be the responsibility of the landowner and the Strata Corporation.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, our discussions with Mott were super helpful and really they brought forward the same challenges that the board has brought forward and staff has brought forward, is that they don't have an operations arm. So they don't have people that are out here doing, that are gonna be able to go out and do snow clearing. So that's what they're not interested in. They are supportive of this infrastructure. They are responsible for the infrastructure in its bigger sense. The day-to-day operations is what they don't want to have any responsibility, and they don't have staff capacity or really set up for operations. And that's consistent too with where SLRD, our current staffing is at, is that we don't have staff that are going out on and clearing sidewalks or putting salt down and whatnot. So that is the solution, or the option that's being presented today reflects both SLRD constraints as well as Mott constraints.
I just wanna, I believe they said they would be responsible for lighting as well, correct? Mott would be.
Any other questions? Comments? Somebody has table motion? Director Hoffman, go ahead.
Yeah.
Move as presented. There's seconder. Any discussion on the motion? Go ahead.
Yeah, I've been hesitant here. I think it is far better than when we started. I still, at the end of the day though, I'm struggling to see this aligning with our RGS and what we're trying to do, and I appreciate some of the funding for below market or trying to deal with housing affordability, but for me, there's also still we're facilitating a large amount of resources to go into something that is, from our perspective, not really aligned with our RGS. And you know, I just keep thinking we've gotta find ways to direct, even if it's private resources, into things that align with the RGS and maximize, you know, stuff which is only necessary because it's maybe not the best place for it. And so I think that's where I'm left.
Thank you. Anyone else? Comments on the motion? Director Rich Jones.
Thank you, just, that was a good report. I think that it's a very common sense solution. Thank you. It was well presented.
I won't repeat it, but I feel similarly to Director Pettengill, in terms of the overall, whether it belongs there or not, but I feel like we've come a long way and this is definitely the best result of what we've been working with. Reason I'll be supporting the motion, but I also struggle with a little bit of the contradiction with the RGS. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Pettengill? Motion carries. Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it. I think that's to 7.2. The request for decision regarding the election and assent voting bylaw number 19/2026. Harris. When you're ready.
Hello, Gal Harris.
Follow it.
Take two. Gal Harris, Legislative Coordinator with the SLRD. This report is to seek board approval of 3 readings and adoption of the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District Election and Assent Voting Bylaw number 1952/2026. Local governments in BC are required to conduct elections, by-elections, and assent voting in accordance with the Local Government Act. And this is achieved through the adoption of an election bylaw and the appointment of a chief election officer. In advance of each general election, election bylaws are reviewed to ensure legislative compliance and administrative effectiveness. The proposed bylaw will repeal and replace the current elections bylaw number 1581/2018. The proposed bylaw continues to maintain all voting opportunities for elections provided in the existing bylaw, including the provision of a second required advance voting day under section 107 of the Act, even though this is not actually required by legislation due to each of the electoral areas having a population of less than 5,000. For other advanced and additional voting opportunities, the provisions have been streamlined, but they continue to retain the Chief Election Officer's authority to establish such additional voting opportunities. The proposed bylaw also introduces an updated format that incorporates simplified language and defined terms to improve clarity and readability. Definitions have also been expanded to improve clarity. The mail ballot process, as outlined in Schedule A, has been simplified and reviewed to ensure it is in alignment with Section 110 of the Act. Staff are available for any questions.
Yes, any questions? Questions, any comments? Somebody like to move?
Recommendations,
We should, pardon me?
move that number 1.
Okay, move first, second, and third reading, and moved by Director Rainbow, seconded by Director Crompton. Any opposed? Motion carries. And the second one requiring a 2/3 majority vote, is that it be adopted. Moved by Director Morton, seconded by Director Birch Jones. Any opposed? Motion carries. We're on 7.3, request for decision, procedure bylaw number 1899/2026. This report has been removed. Do we need a motion to defer?
No, I'd actually just like to provide an update as to the status of that. So in regards to the procedure bylaw that was scheduled for consideration of 3 readings and adoption at today's meeting, the bylaw has been withdrawn from the agenda as legislated public notice requirements were not fully met. As board members are aware, the Local Government Act sets out mandatory public notice requirements that must be satisfied prior to adopting certain bylaws, of which the procedure bylaw is one of them. Due to an administrative issue outside of the SLRD's control with the newspaper or publication, the required second notice was not published in the April 16th edition of the Squamish Chief newspaper, resulting in non-compliance with the notice provisions of the Act. To ensure for full compliance with notice requirements, consideration of the bylaw has been moved to the May 27th board meeting, and staff will work with the publications to reissue the full public notice prior to that meeting with no additional cost to the SLRD. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Go ahead.
Thank you. I just, thank you for that update. When I was reading it, I was wondering about without our Lillooet newspaper being operational. And as time goes by, I'm less optimistic about the Lillooet newspaper, although I'd love to see it come back into production, and we have some ideas. There is the Mountain Telegraph in Area A. I don't know how well that's read. And we have a little Lillooet Loop newsletter, which I've given a copy to our communications, but I'm not sure what alternatives we have in terms of public notices. It's a real challenge. Thinking about it and yeah, a challenge for the north, but it's also a challenge for the SLRD. So I don't have a solution, but believe me, I am thinking about it.
And I can say that communications is very aware of that situation and how we can ensure that we're getting information up into those more rural areas that no longer have that publication through website and social media posts that will hopefully drive people to the website where they can get additional information.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's no motion required there, so we'll move on to 8.1, the acting CEO verbal update. But
Omar Butt, General Manager of Infrastructure and Environmental Services and Acting CAO. Just update on Squamish Valley Agricultural Plan alternate approval process. The electoral response period for the AAP is underway. The deadline for receiving electoral response is Monday, April 27th at 4:30 p.m. After the deadline, the corporate officer will certify the AAP results and the project webpage will be updated accordingly. A staff report with next steps will then be brought to the May board meeting for board consideration. The local government climate action program has not been reviewed by the Ministry of Environment and Climate Solutions for 2026-2027 service plan. This program has provided funding for local climate resiliency work and have been a reliable long-term source of operational funding. My understanding is that they have already heard feedback regarding this and are reviewing this, so this might change, but if the board wants to consider a motion to advocate to the province for reconsideration, that as well. And I believe Colin has had some discussions with this group.
Yeah, maybe just an update, like. We got this news or got that messaging from UBCM that it had not been renewed pretty recently. So I had spoken to the LGCAP team earlier this week and they kind of wanted their messaging to be that it hasn't been canceled, but it hasn't been renewed. And they're still kind of waiting to hear on the future of the program. So, I'm not really sure what the difference is. And I think we're still waiting for more messaging, but obviously UBCM is trying to put some advocacy out there to kind of, strengthen the messaging from local governments that this is an important funding source and that we would like to see it continue. And, the LGCAP team also said that there has been constant funding for, emissions initiatives like the CAR program and the LGCAP, and they would be surprised that if funding just completely stopped, but that they don't have an update further than that at this time, so. Interesting times.
feel like that's something we would like to add our voice to.
Yes.
Yeah, perhaps, and I would suggest like a fairly strong, let's talk about how important it is, the amount of work that local government has taken on for climate action and which is already overwhelming for our level of government. This funding is a small little support for that work we do. So I think we need to have a pretty firm.
I'll second that. Is that a motion?
Yes.
Made by Director Rainbow, second by Director Compton.
And just one thing I would like to mention is that we did receive like 3 years of upfront funding for this program. So technically we have received funding for 2026. It would be like the 2027 payment that is up in the air right now, whether that's going to continue. So I guess that takes a bit of the urgency away. It's not like we were expecting a payment in a month and it's not going to happen. It's just that we don't know for 2027 if there's funding.
The staff felt it appropriate, including a couple of examples of the good work we've done with our fund when it might be helpful. An example. Go ahead, Director.
I'm just wondering if we should CC the municipality so we can also bring it up on our agendas and reinforce that strong letter.
So send our letter on to the municipality for information. Okay, it's the second part of the motion.
Yep. Of course. I had that in mind.
Call the question, any opposed? Motion carries.
And then the SLRD Fire Smart program, I just want to provide some clarification.
Yeah.
Some questions that came up previous meeting. Fees for the vegetation disposal resulting from recommended Fire Smart home assessment mitigation activities at any SLRD waste and recycling facilities are 100% reimbursed through the rebate program. Receipts must be submitted with the rebate application. The SLRD received funding to deliver a Fire Smart program through the UBCM CRI funding stream. We do not provide funding to societies to deliver the Fire Smart program. That's what our team does. The SLRD Fire Smart team maintains close working relationships with many community-based organizations and societies to support and promote participation in the Fire Smart program, which includes home assessments, rebate program, and community education events. individuals and societies are encouraged to contact the SLRD Fire Smart team through the website. There's phone number and emails there. My update.
Any questions?
Thank you. I think I was asking about this, and I appreciate the information. I of course would like any fire smarting activities in our communities to be as simple for the constituents as possible. And so requiring an assessment, because that's the only way, if you had it together, to get your receipt at the landfill and include it in your rebate application, like that's really gonna narrow down the number of candidates that actually receive that reimbursement. But more importantly, I don't want to do anything that discourages people from participating in this. So I know that it was really well received when we had, if it's fire smarting debris material and it's received free at the landfill, that is just so straightforward. That is more the way that I like to see it managed. And it's not that I don't think staff are capable of doing a really good job administering this, but putting extra layers of administration on it for the constituents, I don't agree with that. So maybe I'll just leave it there as my comment. Thank you.
You know, we can take that back and discuss on staff level, but I do know that doing it that way, there's other complications on the other side for the landfill operations, right? So
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Any other comments? Somebody like to move receipt? First Jones, second by Director French. Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Butt, we are gonna move ahead to 8.3. Yeah, 8.2 is a time delegation at 1 o'clock, so we'll go to 8.3, which is a request for decision, approval of the SLRD 2025 audited statements. Hodgins, are you here to answer questions, or do you have anything to set the table?
Yeah, I think just questions. Obviously, this is our annual financial statements and you guys already heard from our auditors, so.
Questions? Seeing no questions, would somebody like to make the motion that we approve the financial statements from audited 2025 financial statements? And Director Rainbow, seconded by Director Compton, discussion.
I'd just like to say, the amount of time that and opportunities we get to spend in the budget process is really helpful for me. I feel making this decision now is backed up by a lot of work, and so thank you for the amount of time you put into it, but also the amount of opportunity this board has to sit with it and discuss it. It's helpful.
I'd add that, you know, we've made comments before about the amount of work that's gone into this whole budget process and how it's improved year over year over year. We felt that way to hear the auditors speak that way and to have that reaffirmed by the professionals is tribute to you guys, and thank you for what you guys do. So the question, should I go ahead?
Thanks, Chair. As someone who is an alternate and isn't intimately involved in the budget process and all this finance stuff, in addition to acknowledging the great work of regional district staff, I think there's an acknowledgement to be had for the directors. Because as I understand it, the process is far more complicated than what we deal with at the district and municipal level. So to the directors who've been involved in this process, deep, thank you for that great work.
I'd be happy to accept that on behalf of.
All right, any opposed? No question, any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, you guys. Everybody get to keep moving?
Exactly. That's my point.
We are on 8.4, direction request approval of 2025 expenses, Director Rainbow.
So move.
Seconder? Director Morton, opposed, motion carries. 8.5. Direction request, this is for the trail maintenance funding request with regards to Furry Creek Community Association. It's for
mine,
there you go.
About General Manager of Infrastructure and Environmental Services. The request was brought to March EAD, and at the March board, the board added the word public in the resolution. Lands in question are privately owned by Piece. The Local Government Act generally restricts regional districts from providing assistance to a business. And then as part of the development agreement between SLRD and Piece is meant to build and maintain trails to the satisfaction of the SLRD. Some of the trails listed in the proposal may be meant to be transferred to the SLRD in the future, and some would likely remain with Piece as private land. So that's kind of a summary of that. I'm happy to answer questions, and we do have other stuff here as well, Claire and Suzanne.
Do you want to add anything? No? Any questions? Go ahead, very helpful.
Thank you. Do we have legal authority to fund maintenance on private land? Is that legal?
Thank you through the chair. I mean, I would look to Director Clark, as though the report does confirm that typically is not supported under the Local Government Act.
No, without agreements.
Not without agreement. So if we have an agreement in place, then that makes it legal.
Yeah, normally this is an agreement with the private owner for like a tri-party agreement for the
Right.
Maintenance to be done.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Let's make a comment about this situation. Yep. We've taken basically no interest in trails in the Furry Creek area since the development started. And the community has taken up the slack and done some things. There is a right of way that crosses the rail line at grade, crosses the golf course about 40 yards in front of the tee boxes on hole number 15. And it was so dangerous that CN wanted the railway crossing blocked off. So now you've got a situation where legally there's supposed to be access to the beach, and that was taken away. What the community did was there's a MOTT underpass under the highway, and so and it turns left and goes down to what is eventually going to be a bus stop when we have transit. What the community did was build a trail through the woods. So some of that land through the woods is fine piece. Some of it is railway, what do you call it, right of way. And when that hit the golf course, it hit the cart path. And so Fine Piece, they weren't entirely comfortable with people walking along the cart path, which I understand. So what the agreement was, and what they financed for us, was to have just a simple crossing where you could cross the cart path, and then they built a trail with a split rail fence separating the trail from the cart path, so that it was safe. And that took people down onto the dike. You walk along the dike and there's access to the beach in several places. If you look on the north side of the creek, for some reason the dike was paved. I'm not quite sure who did that, who paid for it or anything, but the SLRD owns that right now and maintains it. And people use that all the time. Not so much the local people, but public. We have hundreds of people coming to Furry Creek to the beach areas on the north and south side of the creek. So this area where they did maintain it last year, we contributed some money last year through Area D Select, and the trail through the woods was maintained. The trail along the top of the dike was maintained, and that's the area they're talking about. And the toilets that are there, they're on MOTT right of way. The SLRD doesn't have tenure to to be able to build those toilets. The FCCA has it. Our CAO at the time suggested that SLRD shouldn't be involved and it should be local. So they have they have authority to have those toilets there, and there's some waste bins as well. This person that was hired last year for what, a day a week, cleaned out those garbage bins and maintained the toilets. The trail along the top of the dike requires a little bit of cutting back at the beginning of the spring. So is that private land? I'm not sure, but certainly, yeah, it's private in the fine piece on it, but there's a right of way along it. And there has to be that right of way to provide the public access to the beach. So it seems to me that if we're just maintaining rights of way, that we're not contravening any kind of laws that say we can't help or can't support a private company. You know, it just seems sort of incongruous to me that after we've been funding the trails for certainly the 12 years I've been around, and maybe before that, we funded this employee last year, and the intent eventually is to say that let's fold this into the cost center, which pays for open spaces maintenance in Furry Creek. The problem with that is that bylaw was written many years ago, before anybody here was around. And if you read it, you'd think, oh my God, how did that happen? Because you look at when bylaws are presented to us now, they're thorough, they're in detail. That one is not. So what I would prefer is that we go ahead and fund this now. And then prior to next year, next budgeting at the end of this year, we look at expanding the open spaces bylaw to incorporate this, and asking the question at that time, what agreements do we need? What arrangement do we have to come to with Fine Peace, with the Oliver's Landing Strata Corporation? Look at the mapping for Furry Creek. It's very confusing. And we're certainly doing some work on land that is owned by Oliver's Landing Strata Corporation. Should we be doing that? How do we work that out, and so on? So I would like to see this go forward. So I want to choose option 3, provide the requesting funding to the FCCA, and along with a recommendation that we look at it during the budgeting process, and that prior to that, we consider what agreements, what negotiations should go forward with Fine Peace and with Strata Corporation.
Yeah, I'm gonna go
Thank you very
to
much.
questions and comments before motion. Thank you. Go ahead, go.
Yeah, so 2 things. If assuming this stayed private land, the parts that are private, but there was a formal right of way encapsulating the whole pathway, is that another mechanism to then start to provide funding if we have an established right of way for the whole thing?
We'd like to address that.
Maybe Kristen, do you,
Yeah,
you know, spot that?
I'm not sure how right of ways are available for this parcel, so. It's a bigger question than we can answer.
Yeah. My understanding is the dike trail as well has not been transferred over to SRD at this time. It's part of the development agreement to be transferred in the future. And then some of the other trails are in the development agreement says they will have a right of way, but actually stay with maintenance as Fine Peace.
And so the other piece then, I think, I hear what my colleague is saying, but I think I also heard that regardless of what we think is logical and so on, the Local Government Act doesn't provide us a legal mechanism to do what is being asked for. Am I understanding that, or is there a legal way to proceed with providing this funding?
So there is options for agreements. We probably would have to just ensure that it's the proper agreement and put it through legal. No, there is mechanisms to offer an assistance to private owners.
I'm good.
So is that like, would that be akin to a sole sourcing, or like, does it need to be? It's sort of weird because we're asking for access to their land, so, you know, in theory, someone else couldn't provide that certain, but like, how do you avoid assistance to business, like, I don't know, can you provide a?
I don't think we need to, I mean, if we want to protect ourselves and set up an agreement, then we would ask staff to go there and flush that out. I think there's a lot of questions, but we need to flush that out, I think, if that's the direction that we want. So we've got Director Birch Jones and then Director Playfair.
Thank you. I just have worked on a lot of trails in Area B. I know there's a very big difference in terms of liability between just keeping an established walkway safe and building a new trail, and this seems to be a mix of both in this. But I also know from the experience with our fire smart groups or fire brigades, that our staff are very capable of developing a contribution agreement that keeps any liability or risk away from the SLRD and more on the people that are actually doing the work or the people that are receiving the service. So I don't see why we can't do this with a good contribution agreement. I do recognize what some of the liabilities and risks are here, but we manage it in other areas, and I think we can manage it here as well.
Thank you. Director Playfair, go ahead.
Hi, sorry, this might be just, this is an edification of someone who hasn't been involved in this process. Is any of this trail network on public land?
Some of it is, yeah.
From my understanding, the one that they're requesting is not on public land.
Yeah.
There might be pieces where it crosses Ministry of Transportation roadways and things like that, but no, it's
No.
Okay, and so then my sort of follow-up question to this, and it's to you guys as staff, is where it's on public land, is there any requirement to do the section 56 and 57 stuff to be able to maintain? And if that's the case, has the appropriate referral been done with the First Nation and all that?
we haven't been involved with the process of the trail, so we're not aware of the First Nations involvement. That's kind of been out of our hands.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or thoughts? Edgar?
So if the desire was to sort of let us know either the scope of getting all the agreements in place or giving it like is this a half-hour thing to get these agreements out, or is this like, this could be a week or two or more, I don't know, and where would this fit in our priority, like what gets bumped if we want to move on this?
What can staff provide us an idea, how big a chunk is this to bite off right now?
I think we did put a rough estimate of 40 hours of staff time in there, and that's between a bunch of us senior management. And then, yeah, the question is what gets bumped.
Okay. Would we like to proceed, Director Rainbow, go ahead.
If we don't approve this, then we're back to where we were 2 years ago, which means people are still going to come, whether we like it or not. Last weekend, there were probably 200 people on that beach, and they're not from Ferry Creek. They're from Squamish, they're from Whistler, they're from Britannia Beach, from Lions Bay, from West Vancouver. They're visitors to that area. They're going to come, they're going to walk through the woods, they're going to walk along the trail that we would like to sort of keep safe and hit the beach. There's still going to be garbage generated. So you put it back onto volunteers in the community to maintain that. Where that leaves the SLRD reliability, I don't know. I mean, this is a 25-year-old problem. When that development first started, they didn't pay adequate attention to access to the beach. And what they thought when they put in that MOTT right of way across the golf course, that would provide the access, maybe that's what we should do. Go back to the golf course and say, you've got to allow people to walk across. I don't know, but the community is trying to deal with a situation that's been exacerbated, especially since COVID. That Furry Creek Oliver's Land area was discovered during COVID, and you wouldn't believe the number of people we get down there now. And we're just trying to keep that area safe for people. And as we pay for it, like we set a precedent last year, this is not the first time this has come, it's just the second time to continue what we did last year. So if we did it last year, why can't we do it again this year? With the proviso that we spend some time and set agreements up when it comes to budgeting at the end of the year. That's why I sincerely ask you to consider.
Okay, anybody got anything? So our options are to proceed with the funding and send staff way to organize agreements, necessary agreements, which, as we know, requires some capacity. The other option is to not provide the funding, and that leaves things up in the air, as Director Rainbow just described. So anybody got anything new to provide, or would somebody like to table the motion?
Well,
Director Birch Johnson.
Thank you. I just was thinking that if we went for option 3, it would just be to provide the requested funding to the FCCA with, with the contribution agreement. And I don't know if I should put more wording on that or not.
I think Steph would work out the level of agreement on Mr. Moore. Is that your motion?
Yeah, recognizing that will take a while. It's a new contribution agreement needs to be developed, and without a timeline on it. There it is. Yep.
So here's a question on the motion then. If we were able to move ahead with that motion, if that gets voted on, we can provide the funding and then move through the agreement process over time as capacity allows, or is it really like, do we feel that we're vulnerable or liable if we don't get the agreement in place prior to providing the funding?
I would be more, I would definitely be happier with an agreement prior.
There's the option to refer back to staff.
That's true.
To bring back what, an agreement and then
Potentially, or further information if it's,
okay. So I don't have a seconder yet, and we're looking at potentially motion for option 3. The other option is to refer back to staff, bring back some agreement and any other information we might.
But I move that we support in principle while referring back to staff to bring forward the documentation to make this happen in a suitable way. And I believe that's about as close as I could get. I don't want to just do a refer back without saying that we'd like to resolve. Like, I would like to see this move forward, but I think it should have that appropriate documentation for us to consider it in its totality, because what we have here is that I started going into speaking to it from my motion, but
Any other comment or?
Well, just on that concept, sorry for pointing, I've heard that, this could be a significant amount of work. Also some desire for this to happen this year. So when we ask staff to sort of go away, what is our expectation on timeline for what to come back? Like, is the next touch point of like, this is what this means and here's the options of what we can push, or is the next touch point of like, here's an agreement, are you still in support of that thing you said you supported? Like, what exactly is the ask here?
Do you want to speak to the motion?
there wasn't a timeline in my motion, which my intent would be that would be relatively easy, and if there's an interim solution to be brought forward, but even an interim thing we do, I think should have a staff lens on it. We've run into this similar issues with funding trail maintenance groups like Sorka, Worka, like all around the corridor that are doing work on private property that there's a path through this and I don't, but I think we should find that path. Otherwise, we'll keep tripping on this as we try to do this work. I do think it's worth supporting. So if that's over the horizon, then it's over the horizon, but at least we're working towards a resolution. Otherwise, we're whack-a-mole. And I like this more intentional approach.
Through the chair, if we were to have staff go away and work on an agreement, would that also then ask the question, where is funding coming from in the long run? Or is this going to lock in place area D select funds for as long as the agreement exists?
That's that information that would have to come back.
Cause I feel inclined towards sort of dealing with this year as we've dealt with it in the past. I think Director Radio's motion makes sense, like, we don't have a solution right now, we've dealt with it this way to this point. If staff can't get this into the regular workflow right away, then that's okay. There's funding in place for trail maintenance this year.
That's sort of why I asked that question about comfortable with that. Yeah. Director Kenneth, go ahead.
I think what you said, Jack, is pretty relevant. I think, you know, as been said, there's 200 people there on the weekend already. And there needs to be some kind of organization, and I think we should support this funding, and hopefully the staff can come back with an overall branching thing. But for this year, I mean, it's gonna be chaos down there if it's not fixed.
Okay, I think we've, thank you. I think we've had some good comments here. I'm ready to hear a motion put on the floor. Dr. Rainbow, go ahead.
I'd like to move 3 as written, provide the requested funding to the FCCA.
In the motion?
That's the motion.
Okay, is there a seconder? Okay, discussion.
I have a question.
Mhm.
When we pass when we can, or if a motion like this is successful, is there implied there's some sort of agreement around deliverables or something, or is it really like what's the checks and balances in absence of that broader work around contract and stuff?
I think there would be a follow-up motion for it. I'm assuming, as
We
we
usually
usually
keep these
conversation,
things.
there will be a follow-up. I was expecting as part of the original motion, either an amendment or a follow-up motion to have staff prepare an agreement that will spell out those.
For only for future or for these funds? That's my
Well,
question.
for this year. Staff, any thoughts
I
on
don't
that?
like how we do that.
Well, everybody's looking at me, but. I'm of the mind that I don't want to repeat past mistakes. So I'd really appreciate the time to go through legal and have a proper agreement before this funding is set. That's all I can say about this topic.
We've heard an estimate about 40 hours. It will bump other hours of work, obviously. I'm assuming that's a high estimate, and I mean, we're stuck here. We want to get this open. If we don't do it, then we're opening the door to other problems. And I feel inclined to go with the motion and have staff bring back an agreement, or to refer to staff, sorry, not the motion, to refer to staff, have them come back with an agreement, green principle, that we want to support this, but let's get that agreement back for comfort and risk levels. I'm hoping that it doesn't take months and that we'll be able to carry on this summer. Unless staff feel that this sort of agreement will take 2-3 months, or we're gonna miss the whole summer. I guess that's the question. Yes, we recognize we're gonna bump other hours and some capacity issues, but will this mean that this is gonna have to actually carry right through the summer, and we're not gonna be where we need to be for summer maintenance?
That's the question.
I mean, I think realistically, within the next couple of months, it is not unrealistic for us to review this and bring it back.
Awesome.
Okay. So with that, any other comments? And we do have a motion on the table, seconded. So I'm gonna call the question.
Sorry, for clarity, so what are we moving now? Cause I didn't hear in the motion and anything about something coming back.
No, so that's why I'm gonna, so just to clarify, the motion at this point is just straight up to provide the funding. So if the preference is to have staff come back with an agreement or prepare an agreement and bring it back in the next couple of meetings. And agree in principle, as Director Herford mentioned, just so that they understand there is support for this. Then we would have to vote down the current motion and go for that. But it's already been seconded, so, or amend. But it's already been seconded. Go
I
ahead.
made this comment. I understand what staff are saying, I understand the concerns. I don't want to do a whole lot of work to justify this particular grant for this part of Fairy Creek. And then to have to look at the whole cost centre, which covers the area on the north side of the creek, all of that open space area, that we need to look at that all together.
The cost center, you can look at in its entirety
But that
after
include-
and put that on the work. To add that is now gonna take you more than 1 or 2 months to get this through, right? So my recommendation would be, if you wanna look at the cost center and how it all gets captured within that cost center, that would be a separate motion that gets figured out how.
I just don't want staff doing 2 lots of work, doing 1 lot of work and then having to repeat it. We really need to look at north of the creek. and
That's
that
fine, but
cost-
that will not get you this back in a month or 2. That's the issue you need to understand. And if you go that route right now, you're not getting this back in a month or 2.
No.
So it could be a follow motion, yeah, I would leave it there. So, would you like to amend the motion to include the staff first bring back an agreement for the board to look at? Or I can call the question. Would you like to amend the motion or leave it as is?
I prefer to leave it as it is.
Okay. I'm gonna call the question on the motion, and the motion is that funding be provided for the trail maintenance at this point. Call the question. Any opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so the motion fails, right? Did I do the math right? Yeah. Motion fails. Would somebody like to table another motion? Go ahead, Director Compton.
Motion to direct staff to return with an agreement to facilitate funding for trail maintenance.
Second to the motion. Dr. Herford, speak to the motion. Question, all in favor?
But certainly speak to.
Yeah, go ahead.
This resolution assumes funding for this summer. So it's not expressed in the, I think this discussion suggests.
Go ahead.
I think I do support in principle and I understand not wanting to put all kinds of obstacles and so on. I appreciate it sounds like there's legal risk, and although someone may not have brought an action last year, I heard that we are vulnerable to that, so I appreciate that we will have something in place. My concern is we've also talked so many times about our fuel, and we're just adding maybe 40 hours of work with, and it's not that this is unimportant, but all the things that this will bump are also really important. People having, like, they need whatever in their community, and now all those things get pushed back that were so important to us last month. We haven't had that discussion about, like, so we need as a group, I think, to figure out. We don't have unlimited, we're not moving that we bring on a consultant to do this to keep everything else moving, so now stuff in area B or whatever is gonna get slowed down because we're doing this, and so. I think we need to bring that as part of the discussions. I don't know quite how to do that, but when we come forward with a suggestion, like that's where I'm struggling and makes this hard for me.
Yep. I'll go Director and go ahead.
Would it be useful to have a letter from Fine Peace saying that they approve that we can use their land?
I don't know, that's helpful or not. I think that's part of what, the conversations that would take place for
That,
the
get
agreement.
that letter like that.
That doesn't alleviate some of the pressures that Director Becknell was just listing.
And just say, I think that's what Director Rainbow's motion was trying to accomplish, which was find the funding to do the work when the time is appropriate. So if that is what we're concerned about. We probably should have voted in favor of this motion, I would think. We've decided that we want to do it correctly, and so we've decided that we're going to jump this over some other things that are also important. But this is the only path, I think, to get both done.
Okay. You good? Call the question, all in favor? Opposed?
I'm opposed.
Okay, and Director Rainbow's opposed, motion carries. You take off? Yeah. We have lunch in 10 minutes, so we can take off another item or two. Good one.
I have a question there. Do we have any idea at all how long it will take staff to complete that work so that we can reconsider the funding?
Yeah, we asked them, the highest one was 40 hours and the hope was within the next month to get them done.
Too late.
Well,
Okay,
they-
this conversation's done, by the way. Which one, 8.6, Britannia Beach Water System Capacity Assessment. Staff investigation.
Hi, I'm Ed Whitwicky. I'm manager of infrastructure and utilities. The purpose of this report is to inform the regional board that staff have received a report on the Britannia Beach Water System Capacity Assessment. This report that was funded through the capacity funding for local government housing initiatives grant. The SLRD board receipt of report in an open meeting is a requirement of the grant. Any questions?
Any questions? Questions, any comments? Go ahead, Director Bendel.
Yeah, I just was a little bit unclear when I read through this. If there's an interaction or relationship to what's happening in Tiger Bay and is that not sort of also causing a water upgrade? Are we sort of duplicating?
No, Tiger Bay will not be using our water in the county, so they'll have their own water source.
And they're actually talking, we're in discussions with them about an emergency, emergency tie-in. So there's potential.
They'll supply us water.
Questions? Somebody, motion to approve it or to receive. Director Moore, second by Director Herford, any opposed, motion carries, thank you. Next up is the request for decision, this is the fire service resiliency project implementation. Donors.
Hi. Bill Conner. Okay, manager of fire services. Just going to talk today about the fire service resiliency program. Really, what we're looking to do is take $20,000 of the budget. We have an $80,000 budget in total. Most of that funding is directed towards consulting fees. We want to take $20,000 of that budget, keep it within the budget, but direct it more towards training. So just an overview of the program. I know we all know about it, but just as a quick backgrounder, the program has two main goals. One of them is to look at service agreements, policy, bylaw between the SLRD and the society departments providing firefighting services within the SLRD. Address or find any gaps in those documents and address those. That's one part. That's one of the main goals of the program. The other goal is to work directly with these society departments, help them become resilient, sustainable, and compliant. That's the other goal. Our first goal is well underway. From this point, looking ahead, we think, the consultant fees in order to achieve the service agreements, policy, bylaws, are about $60,000. So what we'd like to ask today is take $20,000
up to $20,000 directed to training. And that really is starting looking at the second part of the program. That training that we would be looking at specifically, would be looking to work with the Braylorn Fire Department to help their firefighters meet the Office of Fire Commissioner's exterior firefighting competencies. We'd be working with Birkin and Pemberton Meadows to help their fire officers meet again, the Office of Fire Commissioners, exterior fire officer competencies of team leader, incident command. The training for this program will be done by SLRD staff, me, and by volunteer fire officers from Britannia Beach and Britannia Beach and where are we? Garibaldi Fire Departments. It's a great opportunity for those departments, for those officers to develop their fire officer skills, instructional delivery, leadership, organizational skills. The funding, the $20,000 that we're looking for would cover largely the volunteer stipends who are going to be doing the work, travel costs. There's a course or two where it's way more effective to do it online, the Incident Command System 100. Maybe one course we have to bring in a third party provider to do. It's not something that I've taught before. But even that would be in a trainer. I think that's something I missed. All this training that we're looking at will be delivered in the train the trainer concept. So we only train once. After that, the people who go through the program can take it back to their departments, train and evaluate their own firefighters so they're able to do these programs into the future. So that's what we're looking for. Take $20,000 and an $80,000 budget, move it from consultant fees. We don't think we'll need the full $80,000. Move it to training so we can help work with these departments so they can develop resilient, sustainable, and compliant operations. Any questions you may have?
Thank you for the report. My question is, this isn't an additional 20,000, this is coming out of the existing 80. So why does this come to the board? Why is this not under the delegation?
Because finance told me to bring it here.
Just the original resolution for the 80,000 was specific to consulting, hiring a consultant. So if we're gonna use it for this internal training, we just need a resolution to reword it.
Okay, yeah, did you have a question or?
Well, I can second it because I didn't make a comment after that.
Okay, so moved by Director Rainbow, seconded by Director Burns Jones, go ahead.
We're moving reallocation option 1, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. I really like it. Thank you, because you're bolstering our own strength and capabilities and expertise, and the whole idea of training the trainer is very good. I also appreciate that a little bit of this expertise does leak up into area B in at some point, because you've got these guys that are training within our own ranks and that they get to know each other. And so that is so much better when they have to work together in the emergency. So I think this is a great idea. Thank you.
I'll call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. Sure. We do have, looks like, traffic or accident or something's going on in Pemberton. Our lunch is gonna be a few minutes late. So we're all going to keep pecking away for a few minutes here. So, a couple other items, we're on 8.7, 8.8, information report, planning Q1 report 2026. Okay.
Hey, good afternoon, Claire Deer, Director or General Manager of Planning and Development Services. So we are here today to present to the board the planning Q1 report for 2026. And this is related to a 2020 board resolution where staff are to prepare an information report on a quarterly basis with a list of all development applications that have been received during the previous 3-month period and are already in process. So this report is from January to March of 2026. During this time, planning staff received and completed 14 applications. Summary of these applications is included in attachment A. And I also just wanted to highlight that early ongoing and meaningful engagement during the application review and consideration process allows Indigenous communities and First Nations to share knowledge, address opportunities, concerns, and site-specific considerations that help guide stewardship and inform land use decisions. And I will leave it there. Happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Any questions on the report? Comments? I'd like to move receipt. Director Morton, second by Director Hopeful. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, guys. Okay, you're gonna recess the regular meeting and we'll be back at 1 o'clock or. Oh, I can't even look at rainbow, it's not here. 5 to 1. For a 1 o'clock delegation. Right, I call back to order the regular board meeting. Now we're gonna go back to 8.2. This is an information report on Catalina Creek debris flow mitigation project. And Mr. Stone and Ms. Campbell joining us this afternoon. Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thank you. So good afternoon. My name is Philippa Campbell. I'm project and program coordinator here at the SLRD. If you're happy to go straight into the presentation, I'll turn it straight to Mark.
Hello, thanks for having me. As Philip said, I'm Mike Strain, project director with CapEx and project manager for the Catalina Creek project. This presentation is a brief update of the progress made to date over the past quarter and to review the next steps. At a high level, construction has been progressing well through the winter months, with the majority of clearing, grubbing, and brush burning complete, and channel excavation and berm construction is now well underway. Go to the next slide, please. So this presentation will include an update on the schedule and progress over the last quarter, including a review of progress photos, a look at the project's next steps, budget, funding, and an update on the project risks. Next slide, please. So here's our famous aerial photo. I think everyone's seen this. So this is an aerial view with components of the project and Lillooet Lake Estates parcel overlaid onto the image. The 6.5K FSR fill site shown on the left or west side. The main channel is shown in green, the training berms in blue, and the Forest Service Road Bridge in orange. The temporary bridge and detour route is also shown in yellow. So the sequence of construction is to proceed with the main channel excavation from the bottom up, with the priority of completing the works below the FSR. The section below the FSR includes channel excavation, berm construction, water main removal and replacement, road realignment, and hauling to the 6.5K fill site. The next activities in the plan include establishing a temporary detour route and installing a temporary bridge to bypass the existing bridge at Catalina to allow the Ministry of Forest to come in and replace the existing bridge, and for channel excavation and berm construction to carry on above the bridge, with the goal of minimizing impact to the users of the CH FSR. Similar to the section below the FSR, the section above the FSR includes channel excavation, berm construction, water main removal and replacement, road and driveway realignment, and hauling to sites within LLE. Go to the next slide, please. So this slide shows the overall project schedule and progress in the past quarter. That's that sort of gray band down the middle there. As I mentioned, the work below the FSR is well underway, with channel X, berm construction, and water main nearly complete. The temporary bridge has been installed along with the detour route, and the site is now ready for the Ministry of Forest to commence the permanent bridge installation. The existing bridge was removed about a week ago. Over the past quarter, staff and the project team have been working with the project team to coordinate efforts on site, including construction, engineering, environmental, and archaeological inspections and monitoring. Working with the engineers, contractors, and the Ministry of Forest to finalize plans for the temporary and permanent bridge designs.
working with the community at LLE to address issues as they arise through the construction period, and communication to the community and to the public with respect to construction. All right, I'll go to the next slide. So here's some photos. If you haven't seen the site, the scale is pretty impressive. Heavy earthworks project, as you can see. So starting in sequence of construction, which is from the lake upward, here we can see the section below the FSR, where channel excavation is happening right in the middle of the frame. Lakeside berms on either side. And then there's a water main crossing, which is about halfway up between the lake and the road. If you can see where the road is there, you can kind of see where the transmission lines are. It's roughly where the road is. And clearing and grubbing above that. So next slide. So this photo is about halfway between the FSR and the lake, looking up towards the FSR. So the FSR is at the top of the frame. Right in the middle of the frame is roughly where the water main crossing is. So the new water main crossing had to dip under the new channel.
Is that the bridge we can see there? Is that the temporary bridge?
No, that's the existing bridge that was just removed.
Just removed, okay.
Yeah. Temporary bridge, we'll get to that. Since this photo was taken, the new water main has been installed and the channel has been largely completed in this section. Looking to tie in the water main next week. Next slide. So here the image on the left is a photo taken from the ground at the lower water main crossing, looking up at the FSR. And the image on the right is from the FSR looking down towards the lower water main crossing. You can kind of get a sense of the scale there of the size of this channel. Next slide. So this photo shows the FSR and the existing bridge, the cattle line. The existing bridge is about 20 feet long. And the temporary bridge is about 80 feet long, and the permanent bridge is, I think, a little over 100 feet long. So just beyond the FSR in this photo, you can see where the temporary bridge will go. The lock block abutments are in place there. Next slide. So here the photo on the left shows the temporary bridge preparation work in progress, which involved building lock block abutments for the bridge to sit on and a building pad for the machine to travel across during installation. The photo on the right shows the 80-foot temporary bridge after installation. Next slide. So the image on the left here shows the detour road alignment leading to the temporary bridge from the town side of the creek, whereas the image on the right is showing the detour alignment leading to the temporary bridge from the opposite side. These are in progress photos, but this detour is now in place. Slide. So these images show the section of above the FSR, with the image on the left looking uphill or upstream, and the image on the right showing back towards the lake, roughly the same section of the job. The clearing, grubbing, and burning of brush is largely complete in this area, and construction of the upper left berm has begun. Next slide. Okay, this image shown here, also above the FSR, but taken from the ground. It's the same as the last photo. With the image on the left looking down towards the FSR and the image to the right looking up towards the top end of the project. Burning in progress. Next slide. So the images shown here The one on the left is the Ministry of Forest 6.5K FSR fill site ready to receive fill. And the image to the right is a more recent photo showing the fill placed here to date. Photos are looking in opposite directions. As you can see in the in progress photo on the right, the fill is coming up above the FSR. And the FSR is being widened. Further fill will be placed here, which will result in raising the elevation of the FSR through this area. We're now complete hauling to the 6.5K site, and the ministry is just touching up the surface as of today. Next slide. So here's an aerial photo taken about a few weeks ago, about April 6th. A little after the temporary bridge was installed. That shows the extent of the debris flow mitigation project within the LLE parcel and above on public land. Next slide. So the next steps for construction include excavations and berms in the lower section, Gate 5 road realignment, temporary bridge and detour installation. That's now done. Installation of the Ministry of Forest bridge and subsequent removal of the temporary bridge and detour. We anticipate that the ministry will start in May on the installation of the permanent bridge. Next steps include upper channel excavation and berm construction, completion of fill sites within LLE and the FSR, environmental restoration, and substantial completion and closeout of the construction phase. Aside from project status updates, we plan to return to the SLRD board for decisions related to the project as required moving forward. Next slide. So project budget and funding. Here we see the current approved budget of 11.697 and the current available funds of up to 11.697. This is coming from ICIP, CEPF, and loan authorization. So we're happy to report that the current forecasted overall project costs continue to be within the current approved budget. To date, grant eligible project costs have been paid from both CEPF and ICIP funds, and grant ineligible project costs have been paid from tax requisition funds. An initial loan draw of $1 million has been approved to cover anticipated project expenditures. Further borrowing will be considered once the project is nearing completion and a more accurate final amount can be determined in order to avoid over borrowing. Next slide. Project risks. We are continuing to monitor and manage the project risks. Our top risks listed here have not changed since the last update to the board. With respect to costs, there's always potential for unknowns or changing site conditions to come up during construction. But so far, as I mentioned earlier, the project costs, including changes to date, have been and are projected to land within the allocated budget. Regarding schedule risks, we continue to work with the contractor to ensure that progress milestones are achieved on time. We have faced some challenges with respect to road work in the Gate 5 area. And while we plan to complete this road in advance of the summer, there is a risk it is not completed in this time. We've also lost a few days due to weather in the past quarter. And neither the days lost to weather or the Gate 5 road completion are expected to impact the overall construction by the end of this year. We've been working closely with our project partners to look out for any potential impacts to the project. The main item here is the coordination of the bridge replacement, which has gone well so far. With respect to safety related risks, there are a few areas that we've been focusing on. One is to ensure that we're well coordinated with our project partners and between contractors operating on multiple sites that are involved. This includes ensuring the prime contractor designation is clear and that there is clear coordination amongst all parties involved. We're also working closely with the community to ensure construction safety related risks are being communicated as we anticipate the community will become busier as we approach better weather. Not on this slide, but other risks which we're continuing to manage related to environment, specifically working in and around water and the risk of wildfire. Our environmental monitors, including KWL and Lillooet, are working closely with the contractor to ensure erosion and sediment control, water management, and burning operations are proceeding as planned. And improvements are being recommended and implemented where weaknesses in the plan are found. As we approach drier and hotter weather, burning will not be permitted to occur unless conditions are favorable and fire prevention and suppression measures are in place. That brings us to the end. Thank you for your time.
Awesome. Thank you for the presentation. Appreciate it. Questions, Director Rainbow?
Yeah, regarding the budget and funding, see $4 million allocated there, you will only borrow against that as needed. As we get close to the end of the project, what if you need more than $4 million? What's the?
We won't need more. No.
Okay, right. Yeah.
No, our forecast is well within that 4 million at this time. I don't anticipate that any more will be needed.
If you're wrong.
Colin's behind you. Is Bolden
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. We did have that concern originally, that when we first presented this budget, we were right up tight to the 11.697 million. As Mike said, we do have some more breathing room at the current time with that amount, but if we did need more funding, it would be a bigger conversation of maybe going back to grant funders and looking for additional grant funding, or discussing with the community if they wanted to take more of a loan. I know that that's not necessarily something that they've expressed interest in, but those would be our kind of two options. But you know, we're monitoring the budget throughout this project, and it wouldn't be a end of the project item that came up. We would definitely have some lead time to address that concern.
Okay.
We got to the end, yeah.
Thank you.
Director Pengill.
Yeah, just a curiosity, you mentioned, I think, something around delays around Road 5. Is that a stakeholder coordination thing? Was that a, soils and types of rocks and stuff? And is that all resolved? And I'm just sort of curious.
Gate 5 road is an internal road within LE. It's not necessarily needed for the project, for the safety of the project. But we are working with LE on ideally, that provides access to the beach. Just one of the spots where that provides access to the beach. So if the road wasn't put in, it wouldn't affect the safety of the project.
Rich.
Thanks, Chair. I was noting in most of the photos, there's little to no water. As an alternate, I'm not paying super close attention to this. Is there a water diversion in place, or is this just a seasonal low water situation?
There's not a whole lot of water. There is a diversion in place. There's a couple 4-inch pumps that are pumping water around the excavation and back into the channel. Yeah. But the water level does fluctuate. Gary with LLE can really speak to that more, but yeah.
The line is really a 5-month water. We're in that season now, of course, but the snow melt is less than normal. So, and then it dries in the summer, and at least in the lower aspects. The upper aspects, we'll see water through the project.
Jones.
Thank you. My interest was mostly in the bridges and the cast off bridges, because I have a Forest Service road just up the way at Downton where we need a bridge. Actually put in a request to forestry. I know this is not your area of expertise, but I just wanted you to know that. And it's nice to see you in person, and this is a good report. Thank you.
We have been working closely with the Ministry of Forests on this, and they were looking to save portions of the bridge.
Really?
Footings but not not saying the bridge, there's a lot of it that is not salvageable. And I know you've contacted.
Anyone else? Dr. Kenneth?
I was just wondering, who is the contractor, whose equipment and so on is being used?
The general.
Is it
contract-
local?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, the general contractor is Coastal Mountain Excavations out of Whistler.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation. If there's no more questions, I'll look for a motion to receive, please. Dr. Herford, second by Dr. Hopeful, Okay, go ahead.
Thank you so much for all the work on this and this report of all the many reports that I've participated, interacted with. This is by far the best news of all of them, I'd say, is that things are and the level of, I appreciate the level of confidence as far as not needing to come back to adjust budgets and so on, so or scope. So thank you so much. It's exciting to see this move forward and a bit mind-bending to see it so dry and for the risk to be so high with the project itself, but that's where we are. So I'm happy to see it move forward.
Yeah, definitely. We're all pretty happy to be here. It's been a long road and the staff's put in a lot of hours and everybody, and so. Well, please do stuff. Call the question and opposed, motion receives. A motion to pass. That brings us back to 9.1. Okay, 9.1, Chair's verbal reports. It's the board roundtable updates. Does anybody have a 2-minute snapshot that they're gonna provide to the rest of the board? Seeing none?
No, Chair, I should mention, just that I did mention it in closed, but, just that we were invited by Shalath for the opening of the Liltum Hotel there, and I did attend on April 16th, and it was a very well attended, well organized, joyful event. And it was nice to see the hotel, which is in still like new shape 10 years later. It was really good.
Thank you. All right, then we go to 9.2, the House Sound Forum funding support.
Yeah, this is sort of a 1-year only thing. Islands Trust have been providing this kind of support for several years. Ruth Simons was looking for the money for this year. And the plan, as I understand it, you probably know more about that than me. Don't you? Speak to it, please.
Yeah, so and I thank Director Rainbow for supporting this. I guess Whistler, Squamish area D, we've been participating in the Howe Sound Community Forum, which brings communities from around Howe Sound together to make sure we're all pulling in the same direction as much as possible. So it is a really valuable get together that we do every 6 months. It's largely run by volunteer efforts through Ruth and the Howe Sound Biosphere. We signed an MOU with them with some commitments, and we provide some funding. I can't remember the exact amount, but as Director Rainbow said, the Islands Trust was funding some additional secretariat services, which they are no longer able to do. So there's a shortfall this year. And so I think the idea here is that we've been benefiting from the Islands Trust doing that. It's such an important group that we fund the gap this year, and then ask the Biosphere to come to all of the participants, and collectively we sort of pull up the shortfall. It's not really fair for one participant to take on the whole thing long term, but this seemed like a reasonable way to close the gap for this year.
Thank you. Any questions? Somebody like to make a motion? Rainbow, second by Dr. French. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. 9.3 is a Squamish Library project in Britannia Beach. Rainbow.
Where's that? Oh, yeah. So this project first came to light a couple of years ago, and we couldn't get anywhere with it. Mostly because the library board were reluctant to make a commitment at that time to supporting the ongoing operational costs. So it's sort of come up again because of some activities at the museum. Museum are working with UBC. They've already raised considerable amount of money to renovate the 2 cottages that they have. What they're planning to do is make one of the cottages a sort of a dormitory, and the other one will house a collection of materials that relate to mining that are of interest to UBC and to people doing sort of advanced work in mining technology and so on. The museum are going to staff that facility once they've got it organized. And that brought up the question again, well, if we do that, would the library be interested in pursuing the project that we had before? And the director, Hilary Bloom, is definitely interested. The library is, as I understand it, is a choice. And as the town of Squamish expands, what do they do? Do they try to create in downtown Squamish a massive library that everybody comes to, or do they stick with what they've got and have outreach? And they're already exploring some outreach suggestions. One, I think, which involves Brenham Park. And they're going to have some lockers installed there, which will allow people to order books, have them delivered, and when they're delivered, you get an email, gives you a code, you go and take your book out of the locker. We're wanting to do that same thing in Britannia. The Mining Museum is providing the land, and they've said they will also make sure there's power and AV supplied to it. Wood Fibre are interested in doing something in Britannia, some sort of legacy project, so they want to be involved in it. McDonald Corporation is prepared to do something. We need a shelter over these lockers, just so that people are protected from inclement weather, and they're interested in helping to fund that. So all these different people in different parts trying to move it all in the same direction. I've got a meeting with the library board in May, and I would really like to be able to say to them, SLRD will commit basically the money to pay for the lockers and the book collection thing. So the capital costs, SLRD will pay for the capital costs. And then that leaves the library board with considering how can they operate it? If everything's in place, how do they provide the operations? We already have in progress staff working on a cost center for Britannia, which for library services. So that would be one long-term solution. If that cost center were put in place, then the money could come out of it. So what I'm asking today is not that we cut a check and supply the library with $50,000. What I want to do though is direct staff to do a book entry, $50,000 in our amenities, Area D amenities funds, and just note that it's committed to the library, subject to, how do I express it? Subject to a formal application from the library board and any other conditions that staff recommend. Because when it comes to the point, we're going to have a not-for-profit society, a community association, a university, a number of people involved, and we'll need the library board, whether the district is actually directly involved or not, I'm not sure, but we're going to need to sit down and say, what agreements do we need? Who needs to sign on to this and so on. So I don't want to get into any of that right now. I just want to be able to have that money set aside so I can say to the library board that capital funding is in place and encourage them to go ahead with their planning. Thank you.
Questions, go ahead. I think my question was just answered in that last statement, Director Rainbow there, but the idea is that the motion doesn't speak to that specifically about capital. I'm just trying to distinguish, and then the thought is that any ops funding would come through the cost center, like that sort of like would work time wise, you think? Is that sort of the general concept we're working with? That's sort of how I rationalize this in my mind, but.
That's the ideal.
Okay, no, that's, okay, thank you, that's a fair answer.
Yeah, two questions. One, is the proposed resolution specific to this specific use? Because I know at times there has been varying levels of bookmobile. I've heard this sort of proposal, like, is it sort of anything library related in Britannia, or is it, are we sort of constraining it to this specific sort of solution?
The intent is for this specific solution. But we're just parking the money at the moment. So let's say in 2 years' time, the library came to us and said, look, we don't want to do this book collection thing, but we do want to drive a bus down there on a regular basis, and we need some, then we could consider it at that time. But I'm just looking at the locker system right now.
And then, so the other piece, and just trying to understand, like, because yeah, it's, I sort of was gonna ask, like, what if they're not ready for another 2 years? Are we sort of taking 50,000 out of the pot that someone could use this year, and then we deal with that? If we, and maybe this is a question to staff, like, I understand we could put it in our financial plan 2 years from now, but the next board next year might change the financial plan, or so, like, what is the exact mechanism we're talking about here?
I wanted to have this in place for the meeting with the library board, so I can give them some confidence to encourage them to move ahead. If nothing happens for the next year, that could be rescinded. Which is what we just did with the question you asked me about the hall and the $30,000 that we allocated for furniture for the community hall. We just rescinded that. And the reason we rescinded it is because McDonald Corporation stepped forward and bought all the furniture. So I didn't need that money from Area D anymore. So we put it back into our account. Same thing could happen here. If the library board said in 2 or 3 months' time, we're not going that way, we're not prepared to look at Britannia, then we just bring a motion to rescind this, return the money to amenities funds.
Chair?
Oh,
Compton.
I just wonder if it's more appropriate to ask for a report back from staff. I feel like putting aside $50,000 without a report might be a little preemptive.
I'd just like to hear, I respect Director Rainbow's response to Director Pettingill's question, but I believe if the question was to staff, I'm just curious if we get the answer from, which is about the mechanism that achieves what we're looking at here.
Yeah, so this is Suzanne LaFrance, Director of Finance. I did review a few things with this funding request, in that, you know, it's putting funding aside for potentially the new board. So we wanted to look at that aspect. And Director Rainbow's right, it's just a resolution at this point that can be, it's not binding, and it's just putting those allocating those funds for that project, but it can be rescinded at any time. Yeah, it's basically not binding. And we're waiting for an official application anyway from the library.
That's all I want to say. Yeah, I don't think there's a formal request, so just a resolution should. Just.
So if we haven't got a formal request, why would we assign this to the funds now? Why wouldn't we wait for the request when they've done their due diligence?
Part of their decision to move forward will be based on what support they can gain, and they're out looking for grant monies. If they've got an assurance from us that we would put that kind of money into it, one, that will give them some confidence to move forward. Two, it will enable them, make it easier for them to raise further grant funding. If you've got a local government puts a chunk of money in, then it's much easier to get other people to support it. I know that kind of within the community, that will have an effect on how much we could ask Wood Fibre and McDonald's to to contribute.
Just, and it's a little bit maybe to help me understand our budgeting process and our, but if we were to say move that this go in the 2027 or 2028 financial plan, then it's official, it's there in the plan, it doesn't tie it up for next year. We could spend 50,000 and still know for 2020 if we think, or we're so uncertain of the timeline, we want it sort of protected each year going forward, or.
Any thoughts on that, girl?
Generally, with these grant funds from, you know, ARD amenities or even the PILT reserves, they're not specific in the financial plan, they're just, we put them in when the resolutions are there. So if the resolutions aren't there, there's no spending and put it into the financial plan, if that answers your question. But we can put it into a specific year as a pin to, like, that's when we expect to fund it. There's no problem with that.
Yeah, and then Director Hopfield.
So I'm really good with this because I think that it's just, it's smart to allocate money. If you've got a lot of money here, not a lot, but a sum of money, and you're taking part of that out and you're just putting it away over here, and you've got the rest of your balance. I mean, if we can rescind the whole motion in a year if it doesn't work out, but I mean, I do this in my own finances. I'll put something away, and whether we need it, we do it in contingency, we do it in lots of aspects. So I really am good with this. It's not like we're taking 50,000 and giving it to the Squamish Library and hoping they do something with it and then having to ask it back. I mean, you're setting this aside in your own bank account, more or less, in the amenities funds to be allocated, not allocated, but to be allocated. So I fully support this. I don't think there's anything wrong with this. Thank you.
I'm struggling with this because I support the sort of overall concept, but I'm really curious what the overall project costs are, what this represents, how, like, I have a bunch of questions I'd like to understand more, but I think the way that the motion sort of invites them to make an application, but doesn't put any particularly what we'd like to see in that application, just come in at, like, I know that we'll have a or board at the time, if it's not us, we'll have a due diligence to figure that out, so, yeah, anyway, sorry, I was trying to find my way through to a question there, but yeah, if this is as far as we can go today, then that's what we do.
Yeah, the intent, I didn't want to get too wordy in there. The intent is to, I've got something further ahead. Let me just summarize it. What that $50,000 will cover is the cost of the lockers, which is around $32,000. The cost of a return bin, because when you finish with your books, you've got to be able to put them somewhere as a return bin. That's another $6,000 or $7,000. So probably a little less than 40. We need a shelter built over the top. Maybe the bill will come to 38,000, in which case we don't use the whole 50. But if the library asks for things that have nothing to do with that, then well, they won't, because they'll work with us to develop the application. It will fit.
Chair?
Just the director's report spoke to like all these other potential funding sources, and we're saying we'll fund 100% of it through this.
No.
That's what others were interested in making investments in partners and leveraging. But this is the 100% of the project. Is that what we're proposing?
No, we're not the land's costing us nothing. The museum is donating a piece of land that it's going to sit on. The renovation of I didn't mention that the cottage, once it's renovated and it houses the collection, will have a meeting room in there which will be available to the library to offer things like mothers and tots reading programs, seniors book club, those kinds of things. So it could be a nice little centre within Britannia, nice little cultural centre there, and if we can put, I put 50,000 there, subject to a request. The request might come in for 35,000.
I think that's understood, Director Rainbow. I think the thing where everybody I feel like everybody likes the project, wants to support it. It's just the open-ended nature of, hey, we're gonna give you this in advance of, and they're gonna do this. Normally, when we have funding requests for a number substantial like $50,000, we understand what the other funding coming in is. So this group's bringing in that, and you've articulated some of that, but it's hard to know without anything in front of us when we're dedicating $50,000 exactly where it's gonna go and how it's gonna be used. So I think that's the discrepancy.
It's subject to an application, so eventually an application will come and it will list what all the things are for, and at that point, we can look at it and say, do we want to support that or not? And we may say no, in which case that whole 50 grand will go back into amenities funds. Or we might want to say yes, in which case we'll support it. It might come in.
Okay, Director Pettengill and then Director Compton.
So I think Director Rainbow might have almost gotten to what I think might be a solution in my mind is if they can clarify the resolution, because it sounds like we're sort of talking about committing the number now, putting the money aside. But the expectation, there's an application that will come to the board, because what I was hearing with the original resolution is that if they put in the application, it was in this ballpark, staff would just go, because there's nothing about the application coming to the board. So if that's part of this and we have that sort of control point, maybe that's enough to give us comfort.
Yeah.
Okay.
Angela, how do I read?
Well, I think you're right within it, and it just that subject to a formal application from the library board that will come to the board for review and other conditions recommended by staff. I think that's the amendment to be there.
Yeah, well, I already anticipated that staff would want to make some recommendations.
Yeah, so that's all included there.
Yeah.
Director Pettengill just adding that to ensure that it comes to the board. That's not just an obvious.
Sure.
Director Crofton, you still wanna go?
Yeah, I do. I think we're using budgeting in a strange way here. It seems to me that we could just pass a resolution that says that directs staff to work with the library to prepare an application to the board to support this project. I mean, maybe it comes in at 90,000. I don't know. We have a document in front of us that just says, give $50,000 to someone else and we'll figure it out how it works later. And I'd love to see this project happen. It sounds really exciting. I think it's exactly the kind of thing we want to see happen. And so I think directing staff to work with the library to have an application come to us is the appropriate path. I'm uncomfortable just committing money through a sort of quasi budgeting process.
It's committing money in principle. I think that's
then put that in the resolution that staff is directed to work with the library.
Yeah, you're a little bit jumbled there, but I think we got the gist of it, Director Compton. I think the idea is that some of the directors are looking for, everybody wants to support it, and from my sense, they just want to make sure that it's not an open-ended, here's 50, go spend it.
No.
The Director Rainbow is already asking that they come back with an application that staff will go through, make recommendations, and that will then come to the board afterwards.
Yes.
Yes. So would you like to make that motion?
Yes, I'm quite happy with that
The
one.
amendment, or not the amendment, but with the addition.
Yeah, with the addition, sure.
Okay. Second or further discussion? Go ahead, Director.
Yeah, I can, with this change, I can support it. I think I would prefer in general that we put this in our financial plan, and I take the point that generally, you have to save for something, put money aside, but if we have $200,000 to generally spend this year, and we know we're gonna have 200,000 next year, this money isn't gonna come till next year. We're effectively saying now, we're only gonna spend a max of 150, because we're saying now we need to keep that aside. If we put it in our financial plan for next year, if we knew that's when it was gonna happen, then we could spend the full amount in Area D this year and still have that 50,000. So for me, that would be a better way to do it, but I think
I hear the area director is comfortable in general, I'll support the principal, but I just, yeah.
Yeah, I'll support this, like others have said, I think this is an exciting project. I do feel like we're duplicating where we could have just dealt with it, invited them to apply, and then we can look at it, because we're having this debate now, and we're gonna have another debate based on more information when it comes to us. I don't, but at the same time, this, I'm not opposed to this process enough to oppose this funding, but it does feel really awkward and duplicative, rather than just having an application come and then we can grapple with it and ask for more information and so on, because I've already heard verbally more information than was contained in reports. But I'll support it.
I'm pretty comfortable supporting this. When I came on to the board at the area directors meeting, Director McRae had already set aside some money for this and that. The one that comes to mind is park. But we used to have plans as area directors, or we had lists of priorities, and we kind of would think in our mind, we do have budgets in our electoral areas, like, but they're just not common knowledge at the board. And in fact, the priority plans have been removed by, I think, a previous CAO, not the current one. So this makes perfect sense to me. You're just earmarking this money, but the really valuable part of it is that this library group can now make grant applications indicating that they have this money available. That makes a huge difference in those applications for funding. So much so that they may not even need this funding in the end, but there it is. It'll be sitting there for them and the good library and all the good things they do. Yes.
Yeah, thank you for all the input. I'm gonna call the question on payroll. Anyone? Director Playfair?
Sorry, I don't wanna, I also support this project. I just, by saying it's an amount and letting the library go ahead with something that might use this amount, and then saying, but they also have to come back and provide us with a presentation and a plan to use this amount. I just wonder if by saying it's an amount, then they're going to count on that amount. And then if later on down the line, we're going to feel like we have to give them that amount because that's what we said we were going to put aside. And if the plan that they come back with doesn't suit the board, doesn't work for the board, then now we're letting them down because they were counting on an amount. Sorry, hope that makes sense.
It does make sense. It is clear within the resolution that it's subject to their application. So I think they know, and make clear that we can't just hand out open-ended money to be used to see fit. We need to understand the application and the budget involved. So I think the resolution clearly states that it's $50,000 subject to the application. That's not a guarantee. If the application comes forward, as Director Rainbow said, and the board of the day is not happy with it, then they won't commit the money at that point. Did I call the question?
Yeah.
I did? Okay, good. Excellent. Let's move on.
Oh, did we vote?
No, I didn't have to
Well, it says we call the question. And I'll say yes. Call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
You, correspondence for action, 10.1, request for funding, Pemberton Meadows Fire Association. I know we deferred this last month because Director Mack wasn't here. Gonna handle it in this meeting, I'm assuming. Okay. Staff, did you have some input first, or you just answer questions?
I have a bit of words I'd like to say, I think, for this one. So, just a bit of background with Pemberton Meadows Fire Association. I'm sure you all are aware that they operate providing fire service up the Pemberton Valley. They do not operate within a service of the SLRD, and most of their all of their funding has come as supplementary grant funding from the SLRD in the past, most of which for their operations has come from amenities funds. What we are seeing, mostly from our own internal services, is an increased demand for those amenities funds. We allocated significant amounts towards the Darcy Divine Birkenhead Refuse in our annual budget, as well as some other services, including Darcy Water and Village of Pemberton transit costs. So those amenity funds aren't sufficient to support the full request for Pemberton Meadows Fire this year. In the past year, we provided a upfront funding of $10,000 and then reassessed the remaining balance of the request at a later date. Yeah, so I think, there's about $24,000 of amenities funds remaining for 2026. So perhaps a $10,000 amount would be recommended, and additional funding sources could potentially be reviewed at later dates again. And I'm happy to answer any questions on this too. I know we do have technical services team here as well, if there's any questions on the department.
Is there a service area set up in this yet?
So this is what's been delaying this. I know this has come up a lot. We have a service area for Pemberton Meadows Fire, but it's the tax dollars from that service get sent to the village of Pemberton. So we are taxing those residents, we're paying the village of Pemberton, and they're working with Pemberton Meadows Fire Association to provide fire service to that area. We've then been supporting Pemberton Meadows Fire Association through these amenity funds.
Can it not be, because I mean, these are big amounts, and as you just stated, it's draining the amenity funds that are available. And it seems like these are gonna be year over year over year, and should, in my mind, be absorbed by the folks that are getting the service. So can these extra costs not get included as part of the service? And I know there's often additional, and the area directors like to top up if they have the ability to do so, and I get that, but these are upfront big costs that every single year that are draining these funds.
We have been looking at that, and that's a big part of the fire resiliency project that's been discussed, earlier today, is how can we work with Pemberton Meadows Fire Association to bring them into a tax service? But it gets complicated when we're dealing with the agreements with the village of Pemberton as well. And I know that maybe this is something that Bill and Mark can speak to, but ensuring that we are fairly allocating the tax revenues to both departments while ensuring that fuss rating is met for all areas in that service area. The service area obviously covers all of the Pemberton Meadows, and there's, some of that area is probably better served by Village of Pemberton, where some is better served by the Meadows Association further up the Meadows. So there's a lot of work to be done to figure out how that service could accommodate both departments, but it's something that's being worked on and is a part of that fire resiliency project. But for 2026, we can't fund Pemberton Meadows out of that tax service.
Yeah, no, for 2026, I get that. I just see these requests every year, and they've gotten bigger every year.
Yeah.
And again, it's a pretty specific area within Area C, within the regional district. I feel like going to amenity funds every year for it is a real drain and takes away from other potential projects that should be covered. So I'm glad to hear it's part of the project that Mr. Stoner's working on, but I really feel that need, and again, it's complicated with the overlap of districts and who responds to what address, and I get all that, but I just think it needs to be addressed, so we're not doing this again.
Absolutely.
So I see the actual request. I don't see a recommendation either way from staff. Is there a recommendation from staff at this point?
Not an official one in the report, but we would be looking for the board to propose a recommendation if they have one.
So I am sort of trying to wrap my head around the ongoing work, and I understand that there's lots of rules, different rules. Want to make sure we're on side, and I don't know if I'm drifting into an area where we need to go into close to properly ask the question. Is there I guess I will say, is this doing what is asked here be inconsistent with what we're trying to work towards right now? Maybe I'll ask that.
I look, Sam, I would say no, because we don't have another mechanism for 2026. The work that Mr. Stoner is doing will take some time. It's outrageous.
No, through the chair, no, it's not inconsistent. It just allows the fire department to.
Yeah, I understand.
Allows the fire department to continue operations while we are doing this study.
I look for staff to respond before I go to other board members, just so you understand, I haven't ignored your hands. But he asked the question, we're getting staff clarification. Good, now I'll go to Director Birchmans and Director Kenneth.
Okay, I was hoping to hear from staff and electoral area D alternate.
See, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I was talking to Russ on this, And he felt that there would be $10,000 in amenity funds and maybe $10,000 in Lillooet later, maybe. He wasn't sure, but he felt that Ian, I think you have discussed it with him and he's very hopeful to be able to support the Pemberton Valley Fire Department.
Yes, and there would be funding to support a $10,000 amount today. We just don't have the funding to support the full request that was in the letter. And then if the select funds wanted to be considered, that would be at an EAD committee meeting, so we can look at that and at a future date.
So for now, we could look at a maximum 10,000 through this amenities funds, and then if Director Mack wishes to bring more suggestions, working with staff through the EAD.
Can I just make one more comment, Chair? These fellows up the valley, you know, they put out fires, like there was 2 significant forest fires that could have been major, that were, you know, that were put out by them and, you know, really saved a ton of money. So, you know, it's such an effective little department and they're very, very enthusiastic and.
Yeah, and we all right, just so nobody's opposing their effectiveness or support. We've been supporting them for years. The Village of Pemberton Fire Department works above and beyond to support them. We want to support them. We just got to make sure that A, the funding is appropriate and available, and B, that the proper taxpayers are paying for the proper services. So it's not a matter of not supporting the work that the Pemberton Meadows Fire Department do. That's certainly not the message we want to send.
I understand, Chair.
So with all that said, would somebody like to make a motion? Director Morgan, please go ahead.
Just add this.
It would have to be for 10,000, right?
Yeah, 10,000.
So for the 10,000 from amenities fund, moved by Director Morgan, second by Director Squamish.
I would recommend, subject to Pemberton Meadows entering into a contribution agreement with the SLRD.
He said, right?
Yeah.
That's what the seconder heard.
Any further discussion? Opposed?
It didn't say amenities on there, does it? I can't see where it
That's what's
says,
brought forward. If he wants to bring up through other select funds, he has to bring it to the EA.
I can't see where it says amenities funds.
Amenities.
That was the request provided by the association. And so I don't think they specified the account they're looking for, but through conversations with the area C directors, amenities was highlighted as a.
Well, that's fine, as long as we've got that in the motion.
Okay, call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, guys. We're on 10.2, request for funding Furry Creek Community Association sidewalk repairs. Speak briefly to this, Director Rainbow.
I think it's pretty straightforward. We've got sidewalks, they need repair. We need some money to do it.
Right then. Questions? Go ahead, Director
I
Hoffman.
have a question. $15,000 patch, 21 panels, replace 9 and contingency 2. Like, is there more money in there? If not, I wanna know who's doing this because $15,000, that's awesome. Is there more money? There's gotta be, right?
They got a quote from, I'm trying to see if it's in their letter. They told me they had a quote.
It's Miller Capital that's
yeah.
doing it. So that's contractor prices.
That is awesome.
Just are these SLRD, are we in the same position we were in with the trail as far as a sidewalk on a right of way that we're like, we just sort of had a challenge relate adjacent to this in a previous item. Do we understand these are in fact ours in that context?
These are public sidewalks. They're kind of in no man's land as through the development process.
So I guess that
them and Ministry of Transportation has not been, so they're public and
it's not on private property. It's
SRD doesn't maintain them and MOT doesn't maintain.
Okay. Questions? Yes, moved by Director Rainbow, second by Director Herford. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
10.3, invitation for comment from Metro Van. For the Metro 2050 Type 2 proposed amendment. How would we like to deal with this?
They're gonna be available.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Why is it? Furry Creek seems to be a lot of hodgepodge.
They need a municipality.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're looking, I agree to this metro.
Farmland and stuff like that.
There's two of them.
Paying attention to us.
Yeah, but they're trying to get, trying to get land out of the Hazelmere Park, are they, for development? That's what it sounds like to me, but I don't know the actual signpost. It's so hard coming to hearing it, it's just like, right? And like you can read it, I still don't. I know, like the three times, the first and stuff. They lost.
She said.
Yeah. I said, yeah, when we bring it back to you guys? So Ms. Dewar's not available at the moment. Ms. Dewar's not available right now, with these two items. Do we have comments we would like to make? Is there a timeline, or do we want to just go by May 18th? So, does anybody have thoughts? Go ahead, Director Pettingill.
Yeah, when I read both of these, I was gonna ask what is, looking for staff's perspective on the workload, but it seems to me this is consistent with requests we've had recently where we've provided pretty similar feedback. The same feedback would apply, and I think would be worthwhile. I'm assuming it would be a somewhat of a cut and paste to maybe just reinforce that message. I don't want to direct staff to do 3 days of work, but if it's like, hey, that stuff we said before, it's like, well, here, please send another letter.
Do we want to maybe defer this till tomorrow when Ms. Dewar's around? We could ask her what that looks like with that.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'd like
good
to-
idea.
Pardon me?
What on the next one?
The both of
Both
them,
of
yeah. Yeah, and that way
So-
we could get a sense from her.
Motion to defer 10.3, 10.4.
We need to defer it actually because we're gonna reopen this meeting tomorrow, so I'll just recess it for or after 10.2. And then we'll pick it up
Yeah.
before we go into Canada, go 10.3 tomorrow. So
See you tomorrow.
Yeah, we do have 10.5 to deal with, which is coming out of the consent agenda, 4.22. Do you need staff for that, Director Pettingill, or is that something we can?
Nope, we don't need staff.
Okay, so we're gonna go back to 4.22, which is the My Sea to Sky Sunshine Coast Conservation Association.
Yeah, so basically what is happening here is, for people who may or may not have read the content, when Fortis proposed their pipeline, they committed to adhering to all BC water quality regulations. They got an approval for the project, and then they said, oh, actually, we wanna dump some effluent and some stuff into the ocean. And so we want a permit to exceed the water resolution, the regulations, and we commit to doing some water treatment. And if we go beyond the new limits we're asking for, we commit to stopping and beefing up the systems and doing all these things. And then what has come to light is for a year, they've been exceeding that next permit they did get against our wishes as the District of Squamish and others that provided feedback. And the BCER has not held them to any account. And there's some legislation that actually requires them to hold them to the account. It seems they haven't done that. And now, rather than hold them to account, Fortis is asking for basically, I think it's 4 times the effluent production than that they're currently done for. So they've already said, committed a couple times, exceeded that, not been held to account. So At the District of Squamish, we basically opposed the increase and sort of said like, do what you said you're gonna do in the last permit, and we're also asking the BCER to hold them to account. I can send them, basically what I would like to do is propose that this board support the same resolution that Squamish did, just substitute in the SLRD. I can send that out to everyone. I can read it out now quickly, but I'm hoping it would have the board support to basically not support an increase in pollution or effluent into the ocean. And to ask the BCER to actually hold forests to account to their current permit.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions? Okay, how would we like to proceed then?
No, I have a question. How do we know that they've not been obeying the rules?
They're all their reports. They basically are the ones that told the BCER they've been exceeding. All those reports are available on their website.
So they self-reported this.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just have a question, has this gone to the regular, have we pushed it through to the Victoria at all for any kind of oversight here?
I think the motion actually asks the oversight to provide the oversight.
Yeah.
Like that's the point, is that the energy regulator, which is should be the regulator here, has a proponent that has a certificate, they're not living up to their obligations under that certificate. And so I think it's the complaint with this, I would say, is both, sometimes it's to the proponent for not following a regulation. We've got both. It's a proponent for not following a regulation and to the regulator for not enforcing the regulation. So it's like a two-part, which is what the motion gets to.
Yeah, and I sent it to everyone now, and just to be clear, I added, after speaking with Director Belsham earlier, a caveat that this, the letter from the board be done timely. The official comment period has closed, but the BCER, which is the regulator, is accepting feedback until they make a judgment. And so I didn't want to put a specific date, but there is some time sensitivity here.
So, go ahead.
Sorry, I completely support what you're doing here. I just wanted you to read it out loud for me.
Okay.
I see it now here, Chris, but I'd still like to hear it. And for the record, I think it's good.
Sure, Chair, if I may.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas the Forest BC Eagle Mountain Pipeline was approved with an expectation of adherence to water pollution regulations. And whereas subsequent to project approval, Forest BC has already been granted higher levels of effluent discharge based in part on their own commitments to address any exceedances of those higher levels. And whereas Forest BC has been exceeding pollution and effluent levels allowed by the permit they asked for and committed to, resolved that the SLRD board provides timely feedback to the BCER, BC Forest Effluent Discharge Permit increase process that the SLRD does not support an increase in pollution or effluent volumes, and that the proponent should be held accountable for exceeding the current permit conditions.
Thank you.
So would you like to make that motion?
Yes, I will move that.
Seconder, discussion?
Thanks, Chair. I'll be supporting this, and that's consistent with my support of the vote in Squamish. And in doing so, I want to share a few things. Emphasize that this is treated water. There are some people who are calling it toxic. It's not. It is treated effluent. And I think it's also worth noting that there were 2 boring machines working on this project. The one on the Squamish side, which is going through the soft ground, it has completed its task. And there's only 1 boring machine now, the one on the wood fiber side that is carrying through the hard rock. And there's a few more weeks left of the boring on that side. So the water treatment on the Squamish side is complete. Water treatment continues on the Howe Sound side out at wood fiber. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak to the motion? Of the question, any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And we have Ms. Dewar back. So before we recess, we're gonna go back to 10.3 for Thank you, Ms. Dura.
That's all three.
Director Pettengill had a question. Did you have any questions for us? Okay. Turn over to the rest of the.
Yeah. So I guess my assessment of these is that they would, same sorts of feedback that we've had with similar requests about sort of suburban sprawl and into ALC area and all that would apply. My sort of thought, I guess, would be that the same feedback, almost cut and paste, would apply equally to these, and it would be a fairly manageable task to provide letters of feedback consistent with our prior letters. Is that?
Yes, thank you. So through the chair, we did discuss the different types of amendments internally and how best to process them. These are being presented as an invitation for comment and correspondence for action. Staff are happy to receive input from the board and incorporate that into a staff to staff letter. That would be the recommendation for type 2 amendments, which are minor amendments. Type 3 major amendments, type 1 amendments, we would want to have the board endorsing the letter that we are submitting. And so that's an approach that the staff feels is manageable. We receive a lot of amendment applications from Metro Vancouver, and as Director Pettingill, you've noted, we are comfortable sharing the general sentiments of how we consider our regional growth strategy, how that relates to Metro Vancouver's regional growth strategy, as well as our board priorities and strategic directions with respect to climate and housing and whatnot. So if that approach feels appropriate for the board, we can bring that forward for these 2 invitation for comments. So I guess the question is whether the board wants to see those letters or whether the board is comfortable with those being staff letters, and also happy to receive any specific comments or feedback that the board wants incorporated in any letter that is submitted.
So I guess I would test a resolution that the board directs staff to respond to Metro Vancouver in a manner consistent with other such requests. And I'll leave it at that.
Is that complete enough for you, Ms. Dura? Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a mover and a seconder. Any discussion? Opposed? Motion carries. And did you want to make the same motion for 10 point?
Oh, I was sort of attempting to do both, but yeah, we can do it again or
separately, yeah.
Okay.
May I just ask before we go into the second one, a question that probably applies to both? I just see a loss of the regional tree canopy and ecosystem connectivity. Is that something that you would have already addressed in your, okay, yes.
Yes, and happy that those specific comments, though, happy to receive at the.
I'd like to reinforce that
Perfect.
concern. Thank you.
So similar resolution for 10.4 moved by Director Pettingill, seconded by Director Rainbow. Discussion. Opposed. Motion carries. Okay, decision on late business. We have no late business. Director's notice of motion. We are going to recess this meeting until tomorrow.